The quality of decisions that we make impact the life and lifestyle that we end up with. A lot of people think that circumstances are the reason why they are where they are, but our decisions have more influence on what happens to us than our circumstances. You see, if circumstances were the ultimate predictor of life results, we would never see any stories of people who've gone from rags to riches. We would never hear about people who've had disabilities but became Paralympians. We would never hear about people who've gone through intense psychological drama or traumatic experience and still become successful. The reason why a lot of people come from disadvantaged backgrounds and circumstances and still become successful is because they make superior decisions. Making superior decisions requires you to really think through things. So many people just simply react emotively and end up making quick snap level decisions which they end up regretting. Our decisions will impact where we end up in life. Therefore, if we understand how to make better quality decisions, we are able to then design a better quality life for ourselves. Anytime you see a self-made successful person, you can be absolutely certain that the individual has a long-term track record of making good decisions. And a good decision is simply a decision that gets you a desirable outcome. The average person can be making up to 30,000 decisions a day, and the majority of them are made unconsciously. From the time that you get up in the morning, to what you wear, to what you have for breakfast, who you speak to at work, what you put your attention on, these are all decisions. And so many of these decisions are just habitual. But the big decisions in life that have the ability to impact the quality of our life require us to get out of autopilot mode and really think through what we're doing. So in this video, I'm going to share with you a few strategies to become a better decision maker. I use a lot of different tools in order to maximize the probability of making good decisions. Now, that's not to say that I don't get it wrong sometimes. There's many times when I get my decisions wrong. But overall, if I'm going to progress in life, if overall I'm going to achieve what I want, if overall I want to succeed, I need to ensure that majority of my decisions are getting me desirable outcomes. And these are some of the strategies I use to ensure that I'm making good decisions that are going to increase the odds of me getting what I want out of life. The first tool that I use for effective decision making is pattern recognition. I simply try and identify where have I encountered this situation before and what have I learned from that situation. As an example, a lot of the times I get people who tell me that they've lost money in the stock market. And in most cases, I'm able to see a tendency to behave out of fear or greed, which then results in the stock market losses. The individual obviously thinks that it's the stock market that lost them money, but they can't sometimes see that the way they think is the reason why they don't make money on the stock market. Because of me being able to connect the dots and connect people's psychology with investment decisions, I'm able to recognize patterns where I can see that the person who believes something is not the reason why they're failing. It's usually something else. The more patterns I can recognize in life, the more I can evaluate patterns and see, oh, well, if I get up at this time in the morning, I feel a lot better. That's a pattern. It may be that if I eat something at night, the next morning I'll feel a bit sluggish. That's a pattern. The more patterns I can recognize, the more I can start to make decisions that get me desirable outcomes. So a lot of people live unconsciously, and even though they're having the same problem over and over again, they don't really recognize the patterns of their behavior. They don't really recognize the patterns in the situation. Sometimes you'll see that there are people who continue to get into abusive relationships, but they fail to recognize the behavioral patterns that cause them to end up with partners who are toxic. And because of that failure, they continue to produce undesirable experiences for themselves. So pattern recognition is very important. Anytime you're in your situation and you're hearing something and you've heard that before, ask yourselves, when have I encountered this situation before and what did it teach me? and then go, what are the similarities between this situation and the situation that I encountered before, and see if you can make an accurate assessment of where it's going. The more you become better at identifying patterns, the better your decision making becomes. The second tool that I use for effective decision making is simply a risk-benefit analysis. I'm sure you've heard about risk-benefit analysis if you've done any type of tertiary education. And risk-benefit analysis simply means that anytime you are making a decision that can have a significant impact on your life, there is this risk of getting that decision wrong. So what happens is people get too focused on the risk alone, and sometimes they don't look at the benefit. So the way I make decisions is I know that a lot of big decisions will carry some sort of a risk. I always try and evaluate exactly what the risk is. I then look at the fact that if that risk was to materialize, what is the worst case scenario? But also at the same time, I look at the benefit and I look at what is the best case scenario. So in a situation where I have to make a decision, if the benefit exceeds the risk by a dramatic percentage, and if the risk was to materialize, it is not going to derail me, it's not going to take me significantly backwards, it's a risk worth taking. But so many people don't do that. They get so caught up in the risk, and then they allow their emotions to make the decision, and they simply avoid the decision because they're so focused on the risk that they've completely not considered the benefit. Other times, people look at only the benefit, but they don't look at the risk, and so they end up making the types of decisions that derail them personally or financially or in their career, and they can't recover from it. So risk-benefit analysis is an important decision-making tool that I use regularly in my life, in my relationships, with money, career, and business. The third decision-making tool that I find is being extremely helpful in making effective decisions is a root cause analysis. Most of the things that people identify as a problem is very rarely the problem. It's typically a symptom. And so a lot of the times people end up spending so much of their time and resources fixing the symptom, never really identifying the root cause of why that problem exists in the first place. Let me give you a simple example of this. When you have a cough and you go and get a cough syrup, the cough actually is a symptom. The root cause of the problem might be low immunity, and that's the real problem that you need to fix. And let me give you another example. Let's just say somebody is in massive debt. Now, the debt is not the problem. The problem may be the fact that the individual doesn't make enough income, or they don't know how to manage their cash flow. So when we don't do a root cause analysis, we go and end up fixing the symptoms of the problem rather than fixing the cause of the problem. And when we do that, what happens is the problem only goes away temporarily, and then it comes back because we did not fix the root cause. So in business as well, sometimes when a business is not making any money, well, that's not the problem. What is the root cause why the business is not making money? It may be that their pricing is not profitable and it doesn't have enough margins. It may be that they're attracting the wrong types of clients and their marketing is ineffective. It may be that they're attracting the right types of clients, but then they're unable to convert those people into people who will pay them money. So then it may be that the sales conversion is the root cause. So many people don't even ask themselves what is the root cause, and when we don't analyze the root cause, we go and spend all this time and money and resources into fixing the symptoms only for the problem to reappear again. That's why the root cause analysis is a fantastic way to make effective decisions. The fourth tool that I use for effective decision making is the identification of opportunity cost. Everybody knows the cost of taking action in a particular area, but how many people sit there and analyze the cost of inaction or the cost of a missed opportunity? For me, an opportunity cost simply means, what did it cost me in time and money to not be able to identify an opportunity and not be able to take advantage of it? The more times I'm unable to identify a good opportunity and more times I'm unable to take advantage of it, the more I'm missing out on the opportunity. And that's what an opportunity cost is. So when sometimes a solution or an opportunity becomes available to you, you may look at that opportunity, but you've also got to evaluate, well, once I put my time and money into this, what am I not able to do potentially? And that's what's called opportunity cost. One of the learnings that I've had over my lifetime, going from being a struggling man to becoming a man who has been able to design the life and lifestyle that I really wanted, I have identified that the vast majority of people get fixated on the cost However, successful people always consider the opportunity cost as well. I find that too many people make very simplistic decisions without considering the opportunity cost, and because of that they end up making suboptimal decisions, and because of that they end up getting inferior outcomes. So when you consider opportunity cost, you're maximizing the probability of effective decision making. The last tool that I use for decision making is synthesizing. And synthesizing simply means that anytime I'm about to make a decision, I obviously need to consider a lot of information for it. But not every piece of information is important or relevant. So the art of synthesizing simply means for me to look at a large amount of information and being able to decipher what information is not necessary for me to consider at all. You see, I'll give you a typical example of this. If you want to become really good at being able to create wealth, you don't need to learn everything about finance. In fact, I would argue that 80% of what you learn in finance degrees or financial education is not really relevant to the average person who's trying to create wealth. It's the 20% where the 80% of results come from. So if you're a smart person, your job is to identify what is the 20% of information that I need to know about a particular field or subject that will give me 80% of the results. And that's the art of synthesizing. The art of synthesizing is to eliminate information that is unnecessary and irrelevant because it wastes time, and only considering information that is relevant and necessary. Otherwise, what will happen is you'll bombard yourself with a lot of information, and that only causes procrastination. So for me, when I come across a lot of information, I have to quickly ask myself, what is my objective for this decision? And is this piece of information that somebody sent me, this particular report, this particular data, is that even important for me to consider? What is it really going to do for me in terms of making this decision? And so I will sit down and go, what is it that I really need to know in order to be able to make a good decision in this particular area? So by doing that, I will eliminate unnecessary information, because today we have way too much information. And so the ability to sort through and synthesize information and only looking at information that is relevant for your objectives and then maximizing your productivity through that is another way of making good decisions. I hope you're starting to appreciate the value of high caliber thinking in order to make superior decisions in life. Too many people just live by default in life, cruising through life without ever developing their IQ and without ever critically analyzing how they need to make good decisions. And then what happens is they end up in circumstances, in situations, with people, in jobs, with lifestyles that they don't like. That's because throughout life they were not really thinking through exactly what they wanted and what they needed to do to get there. When you start to become an intentional decision maker, you start to live intentionally, and as you start to live intentionally, you maximize the probability of being able to achieve the outcomes to produce the life and lifestyle that you truly desire.